This is sort of the time of the semester where it can go either way. It's like you got to push through, or like people are like, ah. Sorry about my voice. I don't feel bad. I just am losing my voice. So bear with me, sorry. I just want to go over where we're at and what we're doing the next couple of weeks. The spring break is actually right around the corner. I know. So, let's just take a look. Today is what, March 4th. What I'm going to need you to do for Wednesday, and I'm going to put this up on the board right now, but for those of you that are listening online, I'm going to ask you to do 6-2, 6-4, and 6-7. And those are on pages 256 and 257. Six -2, 6-4, and 6-7. 6-6 asks you to do a debt safety worksheet. And I gave you one of those last week to start, and we're going to finish going over that one today. There's another one here online, blank debt safety worksheet. See what I'm showing you online? That's what you're going to use for this guy, for number 4. Okay? On Moodle, there's a debt safety worksheet that I just showed you. Okay, so you don't need to replicate that, just pull that off of Moodle. The other thing that I would like you to do for Wednesday is on page 258. There's something called Applying Personal Finance. And so if you look at it on page 258, it's asking you, how's your credit? And it wants you to pull a credit report. I recognize some of you won't have credit, but what I want everybody to do is, you can see there's 3 links up here on Moodle. One is comparing student credit cards. One is getting your free credit report. And one's called Free Credit Score. Your credit score and your credit report are not the same thing. We're going to look at that today in the lecture. What this assignment's asking you to do is to pull your credit report. That's right here. Okay? So you're going to follow that and do what it says. I want to read something to you so you're all on the same page on what credit reports are. And I pulled this, basically this is integrated in a piece of governmental legislation called the Consumer Protection Act, but I just want to read this to you so you understand this. There's only one website that is authorized to fill orders for free annual credit reports. You have the right to get your credit report from each of the 3 agencies once a year. If you've got 3 agencies and they each have to give you a free credit report once a year, financial advisors will tell us you should do that on a rolling basis. About every 4 months you should pull it from one of the 3 agencies, because they've got to give it to you once a year. Okay, this is the only website that is authorized by the government to give you your free credit report. Other ones will try, kind of like misspell the name, or be like a .com rather than a .org, or will tell you it's a free credit report, but then they want your credit card number. Okay, because they're going to charge you for something down the road if you don't, the thing, the gig. If you don't cancel it, you're going to get charged, that kind of thing. Okay. This annualcreditreport.com is really the only sanctioned place to get it. So this is what you use to do page 258, Applying Personal Finance. I want, again, at least a couple paragraphs of reflection on this assignment. If you want to share your credit score report with me, your credit score, great. If not, fine, but you still have to do the assignment. If you don't have a credit report, it does have some prompts you for some reflection on how do you think you would establish credit. And as we've been working through this chapter, you should be getting some ideas. You've been reading the chapter. I've been giving you ideas about it. And I'd also like you, just for your own information, to go look at this compare student credit cards. They're what I was talking about, very low maximum cards that allow you to get started in small, manageable way to establish a credit score. Mm-hmm. The last thing I'd like to talk about from an assignment standpoint is I have posted an extra credit assignment due to popular demand. I don't usually do that. So it's right down here. It's a short paper. I'm not going to sit here and talk about it because you can read it. You go on the link. There's the assignment. If you want to do it, you need to submit it by March 11th, which is next Monday by noon. I'll grade them online. I ask you to use the APA citation, and I've got that hyperlink embedded in the Word document that takes you to the citation net that helps you to do the APA style. You're all in college. I assume you know how to cite peer-reviewed articles, but if you need a little prompt, I put the link in there so that you can go look at it. Okay, so that's good for up to 15 points of extra credit next Monday. We're not going to spend any class time on it. Okay, and let's see, that's all I've got to say there. All right, so let's pick up where we left off on chapter 6. I'm going to really just kind of bang away some content here for the next 50 minutes, and then we'll spend the last 20 minutes of class going over that debt safety worksheet that I had you start, and then I'm also going to hand you out credit card statements that I've redacted, and we're going to practice looking at them and see if we can figure out what's going on. Yes, sir. You can get your homework back from this Wednesday. It is in here and alphabetized, so just grab it out. Thanks. So obviously we're talking about credit. We talked about why you use credit. We talked about improper uses of credit. We looked at minimum payments. We looked at how you establish credit. And I think we left off here where this is just it's basically a glossary around credit. Okay, so it's just really talking here about, I don't know why they make it the 5 C's. I've never honestly heard that before this book. But so in order to establish credit, you have to have the character to comply with the terms of the extension of credit that you've been granted. So it's up to you to understand what the interest rate is. Is it adjustable versus variable? What's the rate? What's the repayment terms? When's it due? Oftentimes you can get sort of one pass if you miss a payment date. You can ask for the manager and ask for a waiver of the late fee. And I've definitely had that happen over the course of my life, being out of the country or not, whatever. And you can usually get, one pass on it. And you don't want late fees posted to your account for obvious reasons. It impacts your credit score. So if you do screw up and you do miss a payment date and you've never done that before, take the time and the energy to call them and beg them to waive the late charge because you don't want that posted to your account. Can't do that every month. Okay, capacity, that's what we're looking at with this debt service worksheet. What is my ability to handle the debt? And that's got to do with 2 things, right? Income and other debt. And we looked at that ratio when we're gonna look at that some more lights. Collateral, does anybody remember, we talked about that last week? What's an example of collateral? Sure, if I take out a car loan, go to get an auto loan, and I drive away with a new F-350 for some outrageous amount of money, like $70,000 for a new truck, right? They have the title of the truck until I pay it off. Right? Who really needs a $70,000 truck? Not me is the answer to that. I'm 57 years old and I've never owned a new vehicle in my life, and I can say with all honesty, probably never will at this age. Why is it silly to buy new cars? They depreciate so quickly. Purchasing assets with a rapid depreciation trajectory is not a smart business move. Don't you want to buy the asset that's already had all the depreciation? Or not all, but that big initial chunk of it? Go ahead.
It's not quite that clear, but
okay.
The new car, you have to actually go through the financial analysis, because the new car would be a certain amount of years of no cost in it.
Absolutely.
Or a used car,
you have to build that in.
Yeah, still not the same depreciation, but
good.
The value of breakdown.
Let me repeat that for those of you listening online, because this is a salient point. Whenever you buy an operable asset or an asset that you're using in some sort of operations, you've got to make that analysis between that rapid depreciation and the cost of buying something older that's going to have ongoing repairs and maintenance costs. So that's definitely salient. And that's the key. What Alfred just said is absolutely the key. And we looked at that, I think, on Wednesday, is that the assets got to last longer than the terms of the credit. If you're borrowing long-term amounts for short-term assets, but mathematically, you are going to be getting an increasing amounts of debt, aren't you? Okay, so that's not strategically very clever. Capital. Unencumbered assets. Unencumbered is a very fancy word for something you have free title to. So once I've paid off my car loan, I do all this jazz with the DMV, and they give me a little blue piece of paper that says it's yours. Right? It's not co-owned by Missoula Federal Credit Union anymore. It's yours. So my truck is now an unencumbered asset. It's free and clear to me. I can then go use that truck to collateralize something else, can't I? Now I want to start a business, or I need to borrow some money to send my kid to college, or pay some medical bills that I wasn't planning on, or remodel the basement into a rental, right? It's got to be something practical, or an emergency that I haven't adequately saved for. I can use that truck because it's unencumbered. And then condition, basically credit is based on, we've talked about this, a million different variables, what's going on in the world and the economy, with the Federal Reserve, with the flow of capital in general, with consumer confidence. Is it an election year? You know, there's lots and lots of mitigating circumstances. Okay, here's what we were talking about on our debt safety ratio. How much debt can you stand? What does the book tell us? Don't read it, just remember from Wednesday. Yeah, I think the book, did it say 20 or 15 to 20? 20. And I said 10. I'm a debt Nazi. So when we do this debt safety ratio, it's not your housing. So your housing debt isn't in there. This is all your other debt. Okay? So we're going to take a look. Maybe we could do that now. Did you guys get through? I asked you to write down all the, how far did I have you go? I think I had you go to I had you enter the loans that I had given you, right? And then I had you enter how much his income was. And Now we just need to finish working this out. Okay. So hopefully everybody got this far. Because that's where I asked you to get to. Right, so he's got 4 loans and he's got some income. And I can eyeball that and say that's way over 10 to 15%, even the 20% the book suggests. So the next thing we're going to do, stick with me where we're going with this. The next thing I need to do is figure out what exactly is his debt to income ratio. And then we need to figure out 2 things that we could do, or some combination thereof, to get him into a safe ratio. And then we need to give him some advice. Okay? The next thing I'd like you to do is work the third, which asks you to do the actual debt safety calculation. Did you do that? How much is it? I did ask you to do that? Great. Okay, well I want you to all work it out and see that yourself. So you know what his debt is. Now what his income is. What's his debt to safety ratio? So 29%. The next 2 parts say, there, can you see changes that can be made? So now look down at the bottom of your sheet. Changes that can be made. And then I've got a little A and a little B, don't I? A suggests that we need to calculate how much he needs to get to a debt safety ratio that makes sense. And I'm using the book's percentage here. Where is that 20%? How did I get that 343.20?
That's what he should have.
Great, so calculate that, verify that $343.20 number for me. At his current income level, if he was maxed at the point that the book suggested at 20%, what would his monthly payments be? Everyone on the same page? So one thing we can suggest to our buddy is that he needs to cut his payments by how much a month? Yeah, so do the math for me. We're trying to give him concrete suggestions, and we're going to go up and look at his debt payments and see what we can do. How much do you need to cut your current monthly payments? Around $155, right? Okay. So that's suggestion 1. We'll talk about how realistic this is. Right now, let's just get the numbers up. So we're going, we took all of his debt, his income, we figured out what his ratio was, 29%. Damn, that's too high. Now what do I do? A, I can cut my payments by $155.19 a month. Does everyone know where that $343.20 came from? The second option is, I don't want to cut my payments. Everything that's here is bona fide. I've got a long schedule or a long term for all of them. The second option is, what does he need to raise his income level to? If that 498 is the 20% of a new income level. How do I do that? How do I gross up? If he wants to keep the payments at $498, but he doesn't want it to be more than 20% of his income, how do I figure out what that income should be? You have to divide. It's a division.
Can you do it by like 28 still though?
No, that's not the same math. You work it out and see, it's not the same math. I know, that seems intuitive. So I want to keep this same payment level. That's 20% of what income? You've got to take 498.39 divided by 0.2. And then tell me how much more he needs to make. That's part B. You're dividing by 0.2. 498.39 is 20% of what number? And if that's what he needs to be making to sustain $498 a month as 20%, I want you to tell me how much he needs to up his monthly income.
That's 775.
So let me get a pencil out here. So what's happened here, if his payments, if he wants to keep those, I need to figure out what that's 20% of. And that's 20% of $2,491.95. And his current take home is $1,716. It's just what Eric said. He's got to increase his monthly take home pay by $775.94. And then I just broke it down into weekly. Because for a lot of people that makes more sense. So, like, is that an option? Can you get a second job that brings you home $194 a week? Maybe. I mean, maybe. If you're young and you have a ton of energy and you don't have a bunch of little kids you have to worry about, maybe you can, work a second job. That would be an obvious choice for a young person that's unencumbered by a family. For lots of us, that's not a choice, either energy or family-wise. Or it's like you've got to get rid of $155.19 a month of debt. So now you go, is everybody with me on the numbers? Sorry, I just want to make sure. Mackenzie? No. I just want to make sure if there's something when we go, because a lot of these are multiple steps. If you lose me somewhere, it's hard to keep going. So just raise your hand and say, where did that number come from? Are you okay? All right. I didn't mean to call you out, but I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page, because it's not helpful for me to send you home to go do another one of these if you don't know what I'm doing. So, go ahead. 20%. 20% is the ratio that we're using on this because that's what the book suggests. Obviously, if we were using my numbers or 10 or 15%, this would be even more radical, wouldn't it? That's the debt safety ratio. So if he's got to get rid of $155 a month up here, what are you telling him? Do you have room to play with your student loan? Do you have room to play with your credit card? Dude needs a bus pass, not a car. I mean, he's got a $262 a month car payment, plus maintenance, plus gas, plus insurance, blah, 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 blah. Really, the reality of 99% of these things I see is either you can't afford a car or you have too much car. And you get too much car because you go in the bank and you show them your documents and they're like, oh, good news, you can afford a $38,000 car. Because that's what their parameters will give you, right? They're called inside and outside margins or something that banks run. And you could maybe squeak by and make that happen. But there's no reason in God's name that you should be driving a $38,000 car. So one of the takeaways from this class, I really, really hope, is that you're never going to be one of those people that just goes into a banker and goes, here's all my stuff, how much house can I buy or get qualified for? Or here's all my stuff, how much car can I qualify for? You make those decisions and you go in with the number in your head, and I can guarantee you it'll be less than what the bank's going to write for you, if you're realistic. Okay. Do you see how this works? This is exactly going to look like 6-4 that's due on Wednesday. So if you've struggled with any of this, this is all going to be taped. You can go back and re-see what I did here, what we did. I really like to bring it down to a weekly number. Everything on the sheet's monthly. But when you're talking about that last one, how much more do I need to make if I want to sustain these current payments for most of us? That needs to translate to a weekly number. And the reality of, could I bring that home every week? Okay. Okay, so we're going to now kind of delve into the different kinds of credit cards. You think, okay, that's cards. A credit card, no, it's not. Retailers, right? A retailer's like, I go get a Gap credit card. A financial institution is I go to Missoula Federal Credit Union or Chase or, Prudential or whatever. And I carry their credit card. Both of them under Consumer Protection Acts have got to provide me monthly statements. And in any situation, regardless of what kind of card I have, you can get out from underneath interest by paying your balance in full every month. Okay. Bank credit cards. Bank credit cards are really personal lines of credit. Here, Harrison, here's a credit card with a $1,500 balance. If I've given him one, I've just granted him a line of credit for $1,500. He can spend it all tonight, or he can not spend any for a couple months and then spend $50 and then $100 to get him where he's going for the summer, right? You can buy merchandise on them. You can get cash advances on them. I'm going to talk about that. And you can transfer balances from other credit cards. Why in God's name would you do that? I've got 2 credit cards, and I get a 3rd credit card, and I transfer the first 2 credit card balances to the 3rd credit card. Why would I do that? I would only do that if the rate was significantly lower. What cards will do to get you to do that, because that's a huge source of business for them. You don't need to go generate new purchases. I just need to get all the debt you've got over to me. Is they'll give you, here it is, teaser rates. Come on, please bring over your credit card balances to mine. I'll give you 0% for 6 months. Score. But then the piece that either you don't read or doesn't sink in is then it's gonna become a 22% annual percentage rate. And unless you have the math in front of you and the income to pay those cards off in 6 months, or that new card, that new balance off in 6 months from your old cards, you better be all dang sure that 6 months of saved interest is going to more than balance out the change from your old 13% cards to the new 22% rate. This is super important, this 3rd bullet. Many cards will have a variable rate. What is different between a variable rate and a fixed rate? Go ahead. A variable rate can be adjusted. And again, I guarantee you that if a credit card company has taken the time to comply with all of the hoop jumping you have to do to have a variable rate, they intend to adjust it on you. Otherwise, they would just give you a fixed rate and say, hey, our relationship is 13.99%, and that's just that. If it's 13.99%, you can calculate what your payments are going to be. You can do the math. You can figure out, let me just back up. In a perfect world, you couldn't care less about the interest rate because you're paying your balance off every month. That's not oftentimes the reality for all of us. So then the interest rate becomes pretty important. And these teaser rates are killer. And I know this because I got hooked into one when I was 26, 27 years old. My first credit card, I had no idea how often and how significantly they can adjust that rate.
But those credit card teaser rates, like the example you got us, would there be like a penalty for canceling after 6 months? As normally?
No, but you've got to do something with those balances you owe. Then are you going to a new, and some people play that game. I go to a new card for 6 months, 0%, and then I transfer that balance over somewhere else.
And over the course of time, it kind of.
That's hell on your credit record.
Gotcha.
And also, many times they'll cost, sometimes it's free, I mean, you just have to read all this, but sometimes they'll charge you to transfer those balances. What do you think is the most common, that you have to pay to transfer a balance?
Fee?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
after a while.
So that'll kill you.
Like a certain percent of the whole amount?
It just depends on the credit card, how much they're offering. But a good rule of thumb is if you pay your credit card off routinely, after a while, when they send you the rates, they'll get better and they'll get better because they're watching your credit score, they're watching how you pay out. Sometimes you can actually get a good rate after a while.
Yeah.
That's the long term. It's not variable. That's what you really want to work with.
That's, and for the benefit of those that couldn't hear what Alfred was saying, that's part of starting on this path to creating a long-term credit reputation or credit score, is that you're increasingly exposed or eligible for lower fixed rate loans and credit cards. No, and then when you get to the point of buying a house, your mortgage rate could be as much as a half a point less if you've got a good credit score. Or you would be denied completely if you didn't. So establishing this good credit and slowly building it, it's like, oh God, that's so boring. Well, not really. I mean, that can really have lifetime impacts on things like mortgage payments. That, over 30 years can literally be tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Okay, so I want to then now look down at the first sub-bullet on the third bullet, which says, so say I've got a card that specifies prime plus 9%. Prime is usually a federal T-bond, either T-bond or T-bill, I can't remember. Well, I guess it would need to specify in the card. Prime rate plus percentage points that they're marking it up. So prime plus 9, let's just do both of these. With a minimum of 13.2 and a maximum of 17.99, what would your rate be if prime was 4%? If my card said it's prime plus 9, minimum 13.2, maximum 17.99, what would your rate be if prime was 4? You think, can you see that? Would it be 13%? So it's the 4% plus the 9 that gives me 13, but it tells me right here what? Minimum of 13.2. So my rate in this situation would be 13.2. In the second example, if prime was at 5.2, and it's prime plus 9, 5.2 plus 9 equals 14.2. And this time it's between the boundaries. So it's just 14.2. No, the prime is the amount that the government bonds are paying. And so in the first example, prime was 4. And the card's prime plus 9. So I took 4 plus 9, I got 13, but it was below my minimum. In the second example, 5.2 plus 9 is 14.2%, and that's between the minimum and maximum.
So if you do that, if you go under 13.2, you just go to those. Is there like a case where you go over?
Well, so what happens if Prime's 10%, what's your rate? If Prime's 10%, 10 plus 9 is 19%, and that goes over the max. So now my rate's 17.99. So that's how these things work. Prime plus something, and Prime fluctuates.
Would the min and max range be larger for credit cards?
No, this wasn't required. They can be wide, they can be narrow. So when you go to find, that's why I really like this website, the best credit cards for students. Because I mean, I know all this stuff and I get it. But like, honestly, you start going on and trying to we decided last year to change credit card and we only carry one credit card. We've only had one credit card. It was all in one place. And we decided to change. And I mean, honestly, the research is exhausting trying to figure out what you want to change to. Because they all read differently. And it's also dependent on how you're going to spend money and how you're going to pay it down. So this website that I found, and I authenticated a couple of their suggestions on another site that I trust. I think it's a really good place to start for students. Oh, sorry. And then the last thing here, bottom. How often do your rates adjust? They got to tell you that. Can they adjust every month? Probably won't, but could. They adjust every quarter? Do they adjust every year? Huh? It could be annual. I didn't give you the information here.
There's not like an answer to it?
No, there's not an answer. You have to look at the contract. And that's part of what I'm trying to get you to think about in Chapter 6 is there's a shitload of things to look at to make the decision which card is right for me. So, and there isn't any I wish I could just give you a formula like a sheet like this and go fill that out and it'll have the magic answer. It's just not that easy by giving you things to consider. And then they've got this myriad of things called other fees, and this is really where credit card companies make their money. If you get cash advances, I owe my brother-in-law $2,000 from gambling debt. I can't give him my credit card, but I can pull $2,000 off of my card. They're going to charge you Prime plus some rate, like we just saw that last one, Prime plus 9. But for a cash advance, it's going to be Prime plus 15. It's going to be high, really high. They don't want you they don't mind you pulling cash off. They're going to charge you more money, but they like it when you spend at a vendor because they also get a percentage of the sale from the vendor. So if you're doing cash, they're going to up the ante for you. Annual fees. You pay an annual fee just to have a card. And some of the prestige cards, platinum cards and American Express Golds and things like that, can be $200, $300, $400, $500 a year just to carry one. And everybody's buying the round of drinks on some club in Paris. It's very, it's a prestige card. I flip my card out, it says something about my status in life. You pay for that. That's important for you. Just be aware that that's a piece of the game.
Are the only incentive for those cards just like higher maximums, or would you be like using rewards?
Super good question. Yeah, prestige cards often also carry, there's an assumption about your lifestyle if you carry one. Mm-hmm. So you get access to, what are they even called in airports where you get to go and kind of, you get a high-end cocktail in a big recliner chair while the rest of us cattle are.
Oh, no, they have beds and stuff.
Oh, they have beds.
Yeah,
Can you see I've never done one?
You can take a nap if you have like a long way over there. Nice.
Huh, and you know about this out?
My stepmom, she flies like every other weekend
Okay.
for work, so her board is
Okay.
so I hear stories.
So those are the kinds of things. There's an assumption of lifestyle. You get access to clubs in major metropolitan cities around the world. You get these special places in the airports.
Border.
Huh?
The border plane too.
You get to board your plane early. I'm sure there's a bunch of things that come with I'm way too cheap to pay a high annual fee, so I will never know. Transaction fees, not particularly common other than in collusion with that bottom one, which is a percentage of the purchase you get charged again. That happens when you travel internationally if you do not have a card that waives foreign transaction fees. And I can tell you that really adds up quick. You know, you're going to Peru to climb Machu Picchu, and every single time you make a purchase, they ding you 3, 4, 5% for a foreign transaction fee. And you get home, and it's like, gosh, I thought I spent $1,800 down there. I really spent $2,100. Every time you make it, there's a fee.
So if you go travel overseas, might just go to like an ATM or something.
So, you know, that's a really good question. So the question for benefit of online listeners is, what's the smartest thing to do when you travel? You know, my husband and I go back and forth about this because we travel internationally every year. We showed up in East Africa with $5,000 in cash. Not feeling that safe. Not feeling that safe to be carrying that much. We were there for 5 weeks, so we needed a lot of money. Didn't feel that safe carrying that kind of cash around. But also, in East Africa, the money machines are mostly just empty. Or completely surrounded by people that you know are going to take you down the minute you get your cash out of the machine. So you kind of got to weigh that. Lots of places in the world, like we travel, very third world places. Lots of places in the world you're not going to be able to use a credit card. Or you get off to these funky islands where it's divers, you're not going to be able to use your credit card.
And plus, like, they go after, like, I'm sure a lot of places don't even have, like, ATMs and stuff.
Or they're just empty. Or they're really owned by gangs.
They kind of have to just bring cash with you.
Well, yeah, you kind of do. Yeah, you kind of do. That's kind of honestly where we're at with our travel now. It would be a really different story, I've got a 6'5" husband, so you feel at least somewhat safe. But if you're a couple of gals traveling alone, with that much money on you, it is risky.
Just as a so we won't talk, but have you ever thought about, because I've known a few folks who have hired just like drivers that are act as also security from those places. Have you ever done that?
We absolutely did that in East Africa.
Was it worth it?
Oh, absolutely. Only place I've ever done it. I felt so bourgeois and horrible. I didn't like the idea of it. It was golden. Super golden. Got to meet his family, got to go to his kid's school and help out with the supplies there. It's awesome. But you kind of feel a little funny the first time you do it. Okay, other fees, late payment fees, over the limit fees, balance transfer fees. We've gone through all this. They're going to ding you with so many things. So you've just got to be aware, again, how you're going to use the card. Okay, now before 2009, which you can see this coincides with the recession of 2008 and the demise of many of these card granting companies, credit card companies could change your interest rate without notifying you. They could apply the change retroactively. Hey, Eric, I know that you thought that you were paying 12%, but we upped our rate to 14%, retroactive to the 1st of January. And you just put your tuition on your credit card. Holy shit. So it was a industry that was rife with abuse.
Is that just for credit cards, or what about loans? If you get a big loan, they raise it 2%.
If you get a fixed rate loan, then they can't muck around with rates. It was credit cards that were so, it was very exploitative. Okay, so on page 228 in our book, which, I just went to the seminar last week, 2 seminars actually, but one of them was about how to get students to read the pages you assign them. Literally, there was a whole workshop on it. And one was how to do good online writing assignments for online classes so that you just don't feel like you're checking the boxes, but that you're really having a meaningful experience. This is not to penalize anybody. I just love to see, when I tell you read the 13 pages for next week for the lecture, how many people go home and do that? 2 people, 3 people, 4.5, okay. So some of you. This book, textbooks are so damn expensive, and so many of them are just complete crap. If I ask you to buy a textbook in any class I've ever taught, it's because I think it's really good, and I intend for my work in here to supplement it. So my hope is that you listen to the lecture and then you do the reading. I want you to finish chapter 6's reading. I think I only took you through page something for today. You need to finish the reading, and in there is on page 228, and I want you to know those provisions. What did the Credit Card Act of 2009 say? They've got to give you 45 days before raising interest rates. If you're under 18, I find this hard to believe, but prior to that passage, they could give a card to somebody under 18 years old. I still find it shocking that a college kid without any income stream, shy of, going home in the summer and slinging burgers, can get a credit card. But, they can and they do. And they, credit card solicitations. Okay, this is important. This very last thing down here. I'm going to read it to you and I'm going to tell you what it says. Credit card solicitations must reveal that repeated inquiries about credit score lowers that score. So you're a college kid, you got 8, and you're getting ready to graduate. Your name is going to be, released in some database in the sky that it's probably not supposed to be released to, but everybody in the world that sees you're about to be a college grad is going to want your information for their own purposes. And one of those purposes is to get you a credit card. So you receive 8 offers in the mail, and you fill out all 8 of the applications. What the hell? Let's just see. All those repeated, repetitive inquiries or applications will actually lower your score. Because what that says to the great gurus out there that are doing your score is, you're looking to maybe get yourself in trouble. Because what if all 8 of those got approved? Right? So they have to tell you that. And this is really a double-edged sword. This I don't like at all. This makes me cranky because I'm going to go buy a car and I want to do some negotiating with a couple different banks and see what I can get as far as a rate. So I do 2 or 3 applications, right? And start negotiating with my banker, which will never tell you that either. Your loan's at 6.2%. 5.9, you got my business. All right. If they're a senior manager, they can play with that. But you do those 3 applications, and then that actually can impact your score. So that's a little bit of a chicken and an egg thing. Okay, special types of bank credit cards. A reward card is for every $1 you spend, you get X reward. You get miles. You get money given to no, that's not that. You get other merchandise. You get discount on gas. Okay? So reward cards work, just to share, our personal thing. We came out of our whole analysis last year, and because of how much we fly, and we did all the numbers, it was like really earning miles. There's a card that is double miles. Made a lot of sense for us. But many times reward cards have higher annual fees and higher rates. So again, if you're somebody that pays your credit card off every month and you're racking up miles, I don't care what the interest rate is, because I don't pay interest. But you've got to look at the combination of that. If you are paying interest, is it worth it to get a couple miles and pay higher interest? Probably not. Affinity cards is, I throw my credit card on the table and it has a Go Grizz on it. Or it has a World Wildlife Fund. Every $1 I spend, a penny goes to the World Wildlife Fund because I believe in biodiversity preservation. And I like supporting the World Wildlife Fund. And it's also got a little element of that affinity card, or that prestige card where I want people to see that, or I want to advertise on behalf of the Grizz or the World Wildlife Fund or whatever. Secured or collateralized credit cards, you guys know what collateral is? Oftentimes for people that have declared bankruptcy or have really horrific credit scores, when you're trying to reestablish, now it's going to give you a credit card, they're going to require that you secure it. I'll give you a credit card, Lisa. I know you just declared bankruptcy last year. I'll give you a credit card with $1,000 limit, but you have to collateralize that with an 18-month, $1,500 CD. So really, if by default, they just cash the CD and pay the balance. And then after 18 months, if I've done a good job, we give them monthly payments, then I get title of the CD back. And that's a lot of times how people rebuild credit. And then student credit cards, which is the website I asked you to look at. Retail charge cards, don't do these. Retail charge cards are murderous. I've got one at Best Buy, I've got one at the Gap, I've got one at REI, I've got one at Shell Oil. Okay. None of them have very big balances, $300, $400, $500 each. So hard to manage. And I will tell you, I mean, I'm not a shopper at all, and one for the people that hate it. You just go to buy something like a blender. And it's like, oh, do you want to sign up for our credit card? You get 10% off on the blender today if you do that. No, I don't. Don't do that. But so many people get sucked into that. Oh yeah, well, it's only going to take me 2 minutes to fill this out, and I just saved $12. Yay, win-win. First off, it's not a win-win. You've got to understand what it does to your credit score. Which now you've just opened another $1,000 balance on your credit score, or on your credit, outstanding potential credit debt. And secondly, it encourages you, it's just part of this vicious cycle of encouraging you to spend more than you really would have allocated. And that's what we literally, our whole entire lives operated on one credit card. I know exactly what's on that balance. I can use it at the Gap. I can use it at Shell Oil if I want. I shouldn't, because neither Shell Oil or the Gap are going to be assets that what? Are longer than the life of the payment, probably. They build loyalty, preset credit limits, but higher interest rates. If they tell you you've got a 1.8% a month interest rate, what's your APR? I think times 12. Oh, at 1.5, yeah, 1.5 it's 18. At 1.8 it's over 20%. Holy shit.
And so those high interest rates are bad, assuming that you don't pay them.
Right.
But if you're really practical and paying stuff off, you know you have the money to
Right.
work with it.
But why would you have a bunch of retail cards?
So if you would say, like, I buy lots of blenders,
Uh-huh.
you get like percent off blenders.
Right.
Theoretically, you could.
But I'm only getting the percentage off the first time I buy the stupid blender at Best Buy.
So, or like if you just say, like, I run a painting company and I travel a lot for just doing estimates on painting homes.
Yeah.
The gas might be.
That's a great example of a way that I might manage my business expenses through a retail card. But for you or me just driving around and going up to the bowl and to see our buddy out in Drummond, what the heck do I need a gas credit card for? Just more to manage. More to manage. Debit cards. You guys all know what a debit card is, but there's really specific differences between a debit card and a credit card. Okay? You have a greater exposure to liability. I wanted to just really quickly point out the page, if I can find this pretty easily. They did a great job. What they did with it. They did a really great job of outlining somewhere in here in your chapter the difference between debit and credit cards. And you think, okay, I know all this. I actually would not have come up with this comprehensive list. Right, I'm sorry, 233. Yep. Hey, please put in your notes, pay attention to page 233. Risky places to use your debit card. Why? you can get into trouble on the internet, outside ATMs, restaurants. I mean, this is so obvious, it hurts, but I never thought about it. My niece is a school teacher in Austin, Texas, and she and a bunch of girlfriends went out a couple weeks ago, Friday night happy hour. What do you do when you go in a bar and you open a tab? Here's my card. And then you go drink for a couple hours. You don't see your card. And then you come back and you get your card. Like, what the hell happened to the card the last 2 hours? Anything. Anything could have happened. By Monday, all 5 out of 5 of them had been hacked. Identity theft. I mean, anybody in the restaurant can pull the card out of the slot behind the bar and go take a picture of it. It's like 101. And I honestly, when she was telling me that, it's like, oh my God, I teach a personal finance class. I do that if I'm going out, here, just open a tab. Honest to God, I haven't been out since then, but when I do, I have a $50 bill in my pocket and just pay cash for what I'm drinking. I'm not leaving my card behind the bar, right? Yeah. So obvious.
What's the difference though between a prepaid debit card, which you get from a bank, versus when you buy at Walmart, someone pays a gigantic fee for it, but it has none of your personal information?
What's the difference?
Yeah,
That all your personal information is on it, and it's limited to the amount you purchased, right?
Right. So the risk is lower.
Your risk is locked in.
I was just curious. The charge is really hefty.
Okay, this is a really good point, and just bears a minute of conversation. And I'm going to give you another page that I really want you to look at. And again, I know when you're reading this, it's like, oh yeah, that's an insert. That just means don't read it. But this is actually where the juice is. So on page 233, that risky places to use your debit card is great. And then on page 237, which I'm going to tie this into what you just asked about, payday loans, pawn shops, car title loans. This is a thriving, multi-billion-dollar business. This is part of what I've talked to you about, that they estimate that about 20% of all Americans literally live without a banking relationship, without filing taxes, without having a bank. So here's how it goes. I've got myself a $9 an hour job. Every week it's very predictable. My gross is going to be $360. My take home is going to be $309. And I can't live on that. So I go to Sadie, who's a payday lender. And if I can show a history of getting these paychecks every week, she's going to lend me my next 3 weeks' pay all in one chunk, $927. Never had $927 in my whole life. And you can see where I'm going with this. So I buy something, but I've still got to pay my rent. So guess what? I'm in a relationship forever with Sadie. And she charges 25% a year for the service. So now I'm not making $309 a week, am I? I'm making $309 minus 25%. And then it gets even uglier because I do exactly what Alfred said. Because I don't have a debit card and I don't have a checking account, I want to go buy food and get my kid a pair of shoes. Okay? So I get cards at retailers that I pay a fee for. Or I get prepaid debit cards that I pay a fee for. Or if I've got to pay my landlord in a money order, I've got to pay 8% on that. So all of a sudden my $9 an hour job is really effectively a $7 an hour job. And that's how poor people stay poor, is with these underground markets. We had a law here in Montana where we got rid of all of our predatory lenders about 6 years ago. I was really active in the task force that worked with the legislature to do that. I don't know if you noticed, but one day all those little corner marts just disappeared. And now the lobby is so strong at the federal level to bring back predatory lending. So we'll see if that supersedes state law. Really, really painful thing. Okay, so this is the last thing I'm going to talk about before we work on a credit card together. Revolving credit lines. We've talked about this. You should be able to identify very succinctly the difference between a credit line and a loan. A credit line is you have access to X amount of dollars and probably some checks or a card or both that you can access that line as you need it and pay it down as you need it. I want to very specifically talk about this last one, which is a home equity credit line, because there's so much, I think, potential in it, but also, as in anything that is secured by your home, some risk. So I just want to go through the math on this. Stop me if you don't know what I'm doing. So I think I have to write something first. Okay. No. There we go. Okay, so I purchased a house in March of '94. I would have bought you a mini mansion in Missoula in 1994. And today, oh, come on. Today, I've got, oh, and I took a loan for $170,000. Okay, I had to put 10 grand down. Now here I am in March of 2019, and I want to send my son to college. And I haven't saved adequately, and I want to get some money off my home equity line. Here's how it works. The first thing they have to do is somebody comes out and gets the fair market value. What's your house worth today? Well, good news, you're in Missoula, everything's gone up like crazy. It's worth $345,000. My loan I've been paying down for 25 years, right? So I don't owe much on that. My loan balance on my mortgage. And when I do these kinds of things up here, it's probably, like in your notes, probably behooves you to put down the facts, so if you're going over it later, you can do what you did. Let's say my balance is $62,000. And they tell me they'll give me a home equity loan at something called 75% LTV, loan to value. They will give me a home equity loan or line. I would make a strong case that you want a line. Right? Not a loan, because I don't need it all. I just want access to it. For 75% of loan to value. The value of the house right now is $345,000, and they will loan me 75% of that. Therefore, what's the maximum amount of loan I can take? What's the maximum? Yeah. So is that how much I can pull out of my house? No, because guess what I've already got? Part of it's still underneath that first mortgage. They're not going to re-lend me the part that I already owe somebody else. This is the maximum amount of the home equity line. Do you want to try one more? please ask me if do you understand the facts? Does the original cost of the house ever come back into it? No, nobody cares what you paid for it. All the bank cares about, if I have to go in and foreclose on it, what's it worth? Today, I don't care what you paid for it. Go ahead, Steve.
What is FMV?
FMV is fair market value. That's the appraised amount today. If the bank had to come foreclose on my house because I wasn't making my payments on my home equity loan, what could they sell it for? And the other thing is that first mortgage, that's called a first because they have the first right to foreclose. Or no, that's not it. They have the first right at any cash they can pull out of the house. Can you see the danger in this though? This is what happened in California in the 90s. This actually happened to my in-laws. You buy a house for $400,000, it goes up to $1 million of value. You borrow all that equity, or a good chunk of it, and you spend it on California living, and then the market crashes and you lose your job. You can't make your payments and you can't sell your house. You are just, I don't use words in my tape. It's not a good scenario. That's what happened to, the whole of southern Florida in 2008. And Nevada and Arizona and Cali and Michigan. And
What's the OCD?
loan to value. What percentage of the value of the home will they loan you? Okay, so let's just try one more quickly while I hand something else out. So this one, I bought a duplex in January of 2001, and I paid $232,000 for it. And my mortgage was 90% of that. Then here I am now in March of 19. And my bank, I have to pay for an appraisal. That's the first thing I have to do. I have to pay somebody like $400 to come out and appraise my house. And they come tell me the fair market value of my duplex is $402. And my current mortgage balance is $120. And they'll give me an 80% home equity line, loan to value. Well, I can see that I'm working on it. I obviously have no idea why it does that, or I would stop it. Okay, so I bought it for $232. I took a mortgage of 90%. In other words, I put 10% down on it, borrowed 90% when I bought it. And now here I am 18 years later, and I want to pull some equity out of it. They've sent an appraiser out. It's worth $402. My existing mortgage is $120, and the bank will give me an 80% loan to value home equity line. How much are they going to grant me? Somewhere in Idaho, it's pretty deep. 80%, huh? The mortgage that I took out on it originally was 90% of the cost, because I put 10% down. And now they're willing to give me an 80% LTV loan, or loan. Okay, so first off, does this matter at all? Do I care what my original mortgage was? No, I don't care. All I care is how much do I owe today. So, really, the calculations are pretty easy. If they're going to loan me up to 80% of the, why aren't they going to loan me up to the full value of it? It's a safety net for them, obviously. If that house can lose 20% of its value and they're still covered. So, okay, 321.6 is the maximum amount. But I already have a first mortgage for 120,000. They can't lend me that again because the other lender has a right to that chunk of my house if I foreclose. Or default, I should say. So how much can I get a home equity line for? Yeah, $201,600. Good. These are always, I mean, always, but almost always way less interest rates than many other lines of credit. Because if you miss a payment, they've got your house, right? And if you use that home equity line to improve your home, that interest is tax deductible, which makes it even less of an interest rate. In the old days, you could use it for anything. Can't do that anymore with a tax write-off.
I was still going to get a home run, investing in your house. Don't use it for purchases. Because your house is going to appreciate.
Yes.
So you get that one.
It's all back to that, you know, the in-laws that you have the big Cali life, and you take 30 grand off your home equity life, and you go to Bali for a month. Awesome. And you come home and you still have $30,000 that your house is secured. It's just, I feel very strong about ever borrowing money to travel, but each to his own.
Put that $30,000 in home improvements, get that.
Absolutely, get a deck, put on a new roof, insulate it, put a pad, add a garage on, you know, whatever. And if you're interested in that kind of stuff, there's great websites that show bang for buck on what you do in your home that adds value. And, you know, spoiler alert, putting in your, you know, funky green cabinets isn't one of them. I mean, it's really practical stuff. Like insulation and updating bathrooms and kitchens are big ones. But lots of stuff, I mean, I'm not saying don't do it, but you're not going to get your money back out of it. Okay. All right, so let's then turn our attention for the last 10 minutes to this that I just handed out. And if you're listening online, you can come pick one of these up outside of my office in 408. So this is a credit card statement. And I'm going to pose some questions. And I'm going to ask you guys also by Wednesday, in addition to the homework I gave you before, to see if you can answer those questions. And we'll go over those first thing on Wednesday. And your questions are down here on the second page. What time period does this credit card cover? B, what's the monthly interest rate? C, how much credit is currently accessible? In other words, what's the limit on the credit card? D, is this an affinity card, a reward card, or a rebate card? E, if this card was paid, the balance today was paid only with the minimum, how much over the current balance would they pay? So if I only pay the minimum on the balance that's outstanding, how much more over the life are they going to pay? And you'll find that they've got to tell you that on the statement. And then F, sorry, you can't really read this, so let me read it to you. It says, what is the annual interest rate differential between a cash advance and a purchase? What's the annual interest rate differential between a cash advance and just going out and using it to purchase? And then the last thing I want you to do for G is to write an algebraic statement showing, I want you to tie out for me the ending balance. So show me how they got to that, which should be beginning balance, plus any purchases, plus any interest charges, minus any payments, equals the ending balance. In other words, I want you to prove out what the ending balance is. Okay, so I just want you to write that down.
So is F just the difference between using cash and trading? Is that just asking them interest from using cash instead of it?
So the question is on number F, what am I really looking for? If I told you that I charged you 10% on purchases and 13.5% on cash advances, your annual interest rate differential would be that 3.5%.
I see. We go over all this.
We're going to go over all this on Wednesday. So for Wednesday, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, if you weren't here in class, you better come get one of these outside of my door. We're going to go over this. You are also responsible for 6.2, 6.4, and 6.7. This one has got the worksheet. It's posted on Moodle for it that we just went over earlier in class. And additionally, you have to do that applying personal finance on page 258, which is going to require you getting your credit score. And I've got the link for it. And lastly, the extra credit is due on March 11th. Okay, everybody's all mowing in here. Let me say one more thing, and then I'll ready. I'm looking to have our next test 2 weeks from today, on the 18th. So that's the Monday before we break for spring break, 2 weeks from today. We're going to do chapter 7 between now and then. So the exam will be over chapters 4, 6, and 7.
Do you want our credit report on the 258 or our credit score?
Your credit report, sorry.
Do you see write the paragraph for one of these things?
The paragraph goes with the applying finance. You'll see that. It'll ask you to think about this or reflect on that or. Okay, be warm, be happy, be healthy.